The river looked calm. That was always the danger of Shotgun Creek. It looked gentle, looked harmless, looked like a place a man could kneel and wash dust off his hands and believe this land still had softness left in it. But Jesse Crane had lived long enough to know water lied just as much as people did. The wind was dry, the cottonwoods leaned tired against the bank. The sky was a hard, blank blue, the kind men prayed under when they had no more words that could form inside them. Jesse stepped down off his bay gelding, boots sinking into the mud as he knelt near the bend. There were days this creek sounded like memory. Today it sounded like warning. He came to check his fence line, same routine he'd done every Thursday for years. Mend wire, check posts, make sure no wolves cut through the northern stretch. Routine was the only thing that kept his mind from wandering back to the things he never said out loud. But today, routine snapped like an old rotten board. Because there, just before the water dipped into the dark cut of the ravine, he saw it. Something wedged in the drift of branches and riverweed. A saddlebag, black leather, torn and bullet shot. It shouldn't be there. He stood still for a long breath. Crows watched from the trees like they already knew what was inside. His chest tightened in a way he didn't have words for. He stepped forward anyway. He pulled the saddlebag free from the tangle, water dripping in rivulets down his arm. And then he heard it. Not loud, not even strong, just a small, weak cry, like the last thread of a world trying not to go dark. Jesse froze. "No," he whispered. His hands trembled, something no man in this county had ever seen happen from him. He eased the bag open. Inside, wrapped in a blood-stained scrap of wool, was a baby. Tiny, barely breathing, skin cold like shade. Jesse's throat locked, his pulse hit like a hammer. A baby in Shotgun Creek. Inside a saddlebag someone tried to drown or hide or erase. His jaw tightened with a rage he had frozen shut for years, long before he came to Reed Ridge, long before he decided silence was easier than losing anyone again. He lifted the baby slow. The pistol shot through the leather had missed the child by maybe 2 inches, maybe less. Somebody wanted this child gone. Somebody tried to kill this child. Jesse looked up and down the creek as if the land itself could confess who did this. Only the wind answered. He wrapped the baby against his coat, holding them like something holy and breakable. He didn't even know how to hold babies. He didn't know anything about babies. He barely remembered being one. But he knew this. This one was not dying today. He mounted up fast, reins yanked harsh with urgency. "Come on," he whispered to his horse, breath shaking. "Come on, just don't die. Not yet." The baby whimpered again, weak. The sound carved up Jesse's insides like broken glass. He had to get to town. He had to get help. Reed Ridge only had one person who actually knew how to care for the sick. Claire Monroe, widow 3 years now, keeps to herself, lives near the old trading post, calm voice, soft hands, eyes like she's already seen the worst and survived it twice. Jesse spurred the horse. Dust rose behind them like fleeing ghosts. Minutes later, he thundered into Claire's yard. Chickens scattered. The old dog barked once and fell silent when Claire pushed open her door. "Jesse," her brow knit. "What on earth?" He swung down fast and opened his coat to show her the tiny life inside, skin pale as moonlight. Claire's face changed instantly. All grief she carried, all quiet she wore, evaporated. Purpose replaced it like fire turning cold wood to flame. "Inside," she ordered. Her voice had the steel of command. He followed. She cleared a table with one sweep of her arm, rolling blankets, lighting lamp, working faster than Jesse had ever seen anyone move and still not shake. "Where did you—" "Shotgun Creek,"
Saddlebag, bullet holes. Someone tried. He couldn't finish. His voice cracked. Claire's breath stopped for a second at that single word, saddlebag. She didn't ask more yet. She worked. Warm water, soft cloth, slow breathing out her nose like she was steadying God's hands with her own. "What kind of monster?" she whispered. Jesse clenched his fists until Bones screamed. "I'll find who did this," he said low. "Whoever they are, I'll find 'em." Claire looked up into his eyes then. No fear in her expression, only something ancient and fierce and human. "You're not doing this alone," she said. He swallowed hard. No one had said something like that to him in years, maybe ever. Claire touched the baby's tiny hand. It curled around her finger like the world still had something worth holding on to. Jesse looked at her, looked at that child, and something he thought was long dead inside him moved. Not loud, not clear, not healed, but moving. A new storm formed silently inside him. This child wasn't abandoned randomly. This was intentional. This was evil. And somewhere out there, someone is running free who believes they could erase a life and no one would ever know it. Shotgun Creek lied today, because Jesse Crane had seen, and Jesse Crane remembered everything. Outside, the wind shifted. The creek far away whispered the beginning of war.
Night dropped fast over Reed Ridge. The kind of night where the horizon erased itself and men felt smaller than they remembered they were. Claire moved like she was born prepared for emergencies she never asked life to give her. The baby lay wrapped in dry cloth now, lamp glow haloing the table like this room was some temporary sanctuary carved out of the storm. Jesse stood near the doorway, hands on the back of a chair, shoulders set like a man bracing against a blow he already felt coming. The baby's breaths were shallow, but stronger than earlier. Claire pressed her ear closer. "Heartbeat steady now," she murmured. Jesse exhaled, but it wasn't relief. It was too cautious to qualify, more like a man afraid to let hope step even 1 foot inside the room. Claire looked up. She saw that fear. "You saved him," she said quietly. Jesse shook his head. "Not yet." Claire didn't argue. It felt wrong to use words like salvation before morning. She finished drying the child's hair. Then she moved around her shelves, collecting small vials, herbs she'd dried herself, tinctures like her mother taught her before her mother died. Reed Ridge had doctors ride through once every while, but only passing, only temporary. Claire Monroe was the one who stayed, the one people came to when no one else would come. She poured a small spoonful of weak willow bark tea she prepared for infants. "Only a sip," she whispered to the baby, voice softer than air. "Only enough to ease what pain there is." Jesse stared like each motion she made was closer to a language he never learned. His jaw ticked. He didn't know how to stand here, didn't know what to do with his hands. His voice stuck in his throat and didn't know how to leave. Claire finally straightened up. "They're stable enough to make it through the night," she said. The smallest fraction of tension left his shoulders. He sank into the chair like a man who forgot his body weighed anything. Claire watched him. "You should wash that mud off your hands," she said gently. He stared down. His palms were covered. He hadn't even realized. The mud had dried dark. It looked like blood under lamplight. He stood slowly, walked to the basin, scrubbed silently. Claire wrapped the baby in a new blanket. The tiniest sound came from them, like a sigh, like a story not yet written. "You ever seen anything like this before?" Jesse asked, scrubbing still though his hands were long cleaned. Claire leaned a hand on the table. "Not like this. I've seen cruelty. But a baby shot at? Left in water? This is planning. Intent. The word hung. Intent. The ugly kind. Jesse dried his hands hard, jaw flexing. He forced his voice low. There was no horse nearby. Whoever did it went back toward the ridge. The tracks were faint, but there. Someone was watching their back trail. Someone knew where they were going. Claire's eyes sharpened. So this wasn't panic. This was disposal. Yeah. Wind rattled the door. Claire moved closer to Jesse without thinking. Do we tell the sheriff? Not yet, Jesse answered instantly. Someone in this town might be tied to this, or paid for it. If we speak too early, word spreads too fast. Claire nodded slowly. She didn't argue. She felt the same instinctual cold in her bones. Reed Ridge had a polite face, but every polite face east or west of the Mississippi had shadows behind it. Jesse looked at the baby. We need to give them a name. That's not our right, Claire said gently. Until we know who they belong to, Jesse countered, voice rough, eyes never leaving the small sleeping form. Claire felt that sentence hit like an oath. Her breath stilled. What name? She asked quietly. Jesse didn't answer right away. He leaned back against the table. The light caught the edge of his profile, turning him into something carved in old wood. When I found them, there was this sound in the creek, like something crying under the water before I heard them. They were fighting to breathe even before I reached them. His voice was softer now. Call them River. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, like the name soothed something in her, too. River, she repeated. Until we know, Jesse said. She nodded once. Until we know. Claire moved to stoke the fire. Jesse scanned every shadow in the corners like danger could seep through floorboards. You should sit, Claire said quietly. He remained standing. She didn't push. She just sat on the opposite chair and rested her hands on the table, palms closed, mind racing through possibilities. Someone will come looking, she whispered. Yes. But why abandon them here? Why Reed Ridge? Jesse's gaze hardened. Because this creek leads nowhere anyone would search. Because this is a place where secrets get swallowed. Everyone knows that. Claire stared at him. The weight of truth sat heavy between them. And you think this person is still close? Jesse didn't blink. Claire, whatever shot that saddlebag knew this land. They knew this river carries out past the canyon mouth and down toward the Briar Flats. They knew it wouldn't wash up in town. They thought no one would find it. He paused. But I did. Claire held his stare a beat longer. Then she looked to River again, small chest rising and falling like a tiny lantern flame refusing extinction. Claire whispered, almost to herself, maybe River was meant to be found. Jesse didn't answer, but something flickered through his eyes that wasn't rage, a different kind of certainty, the kind that shook roots that had been dead inside him for years. Claire leaned back, rubbed her temples. You need to rest, she murmured. So do you. I'll watch River. You sleep. Tomorrow morning, we'll start asking careful questions. Jesse hesitated like a man not used to letting anyone else keep watch. Claire placed a hand lightly on his forearm, not bold, just truth. They're safe tonight, Jesse, she said. Something in him unclenched. For the first time in years, he allowed himself trust. He pulled a blanket, lay near the wood stove on the floor, his hat tilted down. He listened to Claire breathing, the baby's slow breaths, the night outside.
And Jesse Crane, who had not slept peacefully since before the war, closed his eyes because for the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone. Outside, Shotgun Creek ran silent under the moon. Inside, three strangers began to turn into something else. Not yet family, not yet fate, but the first sparks of both.
Morning didn't arrive gently. It slammed into Reed Ridge like a hammer. The storm clouds had crawled away during the night, but the world felt carved sharper, more brittle. The river looked harmless again, but Jesse saw ghosts in it now. Claire was already awake. Jesse didn't realize he drifted off until he smelt coffee. River slept still, small chest rising steady now. Claire moved quietly, measuring herbs, preparing feed mix, her hands certain, calm, centered. Jesse stood slow, boots on the worn plank floor. "You slept," Claire said without turning. "Barely," he muttered. She smiled a small, knowing smile. "Barely is still something." He moved closer to River just to see, to confirm. Claire set a small dropper down. "They're going to live," she finally whispered, like a promise sealed. Jesse swallowed hard. The simple sentence rearranged something inside him. He never planned to feel protective this fast. He never planned to feel anything this fast. Claire wiped her hands. "We need to ask questions today. Quiet, careful. Just enough to learn who was traveling through last night." Jesse nodded. "I know where to start." "Where?" "The Ridge Camp. There's an old fire pit up there. If someone staged from up top, they might have left something behind." Claire hesitated. "You shouldn't go alone. I know how to track better than anyone left here. I'll take my coat. I'll move quieter alone." Claire didn't argue this time. She stepped closer and pressed a folded kerchief into his hand. "Slow your breathing. Don't go in hot." Jesse stared at her. Her voice actually calmed him. Not many could do that. He nodded once, then turned toward the door. "Come back before noon," Claire called after him softly. He left without answering because if he talked now, he'd say something too honest. The ridge was a steep climb, thin pines, brittle shale, wind slicing from the west. Jesse moved like memory guided him, like he had spent half his life ghosting through terrain others never even noticed. He reached the old fire pit within 20 minutes. Tracks. Fresh. Not from the storm night, from early dawn. He crouched low, fingers brushing crushed pine needles. Horse. 2 riders. One lightweight, one heavier. Heading east, toward Blackburn's Crossing. He stood slowly. Then he saw it. Shredded cloth snagged on thorn brush 7 yards away. Jesse moved toward it, lifted it between his fingers. It was from the same fabric Claire found lining the saddlebag. Proof. Someone returned after dumping the bag. Someone came back to confirm. He turned around and felt it before he heard it. Gun trigger click behind him. He didn't move. A voice behind him was cold, calculated. "Don't turn around, Crane." Jesse didn't breathe, because this was a voice he knew. A voice he had buried and never expected to hear again in Reed Ridge. "Roy Calder," Jesse said low. Roy spat. "Didn't expect to see you sniffing around here. Heard you went north to die." Jesse slowly raised his hand slightly, not surrender, just conversation. "What are you doing here, Roy?" Roy walked slow into peripheral view, rifle still aimed, eyes flat like coin metal. "Maybe same as you. Hunting ghosts." Jesse focused on his breathing like Claire told him, steady, slow.
"River," Jesse said quietly, "the baby isn't dead." Roy's face twitched, just a fragment of panic, or anger, or fear. "Should have stayed in that river," Roy muttered. Jesse's chest froze. So Roy knew. Roy was involved. Roy stepped closer, the rifle muzzle almost brushing Jesse's jaw now. "You always got in the way of things you shouldn't. Always thought you were some righteous savior. Who hired you? Who paid you to kill a baby?" Roy didn't blink. "You shouldn't have found them." Jesse's voice went low. "I did." Roy cocked the hammer. And just as he did, a twig snapped behind Roy. Claire. She had followed anyway. Roy swung the rifle toward her instantly, but Jesse was faster. He slammed Roy's wrist sideways. Gunshot exploded into the dirt. Claire ducked behind rock. Roy punched Jesse across the jaw. Jesse tackled him into the shale. Both slid near the edge slope. Roy grabbed a knife, tried to drive it down, but Jesse twisted his arm. Blade sliced Jesse's forearm. Jesse growled, headbutted, stunned Roy, snatched the rifle. Roy froze, breathing wild. Jesse aimed steady, bullet chambered. Claire stepped forward. "Don't kill him," she breathed. "This man tried to murder a child." Jesse's voice went unnatural, raw, half feral with rage. Roy laughed broken. "You think this ends with me, Jesse? This is bigger. This ain't personal. This is payment from people above both of us." Jesse's finger tightened. Claire's voice reached through the fog in him. "If you shoot him now, we learn nothing." He exhaled through his teeth, slow, heavy. He lowered the rifle slightly. Roy's grin cracked ugly. "You're still soft, Crane." Jesse snapped the rifle butt into Roy's skull hard. Roy crumpled unconscious, sideways into the scrub. Claire hurried forward, hands shaking. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing." "It's deep," she protested. "We need to drag him to the cabin," Jesse said, breathless. "Bind him, question him when he wakes." Claire stared at Roy, then leaned close to Jesse. "You almost killed him," she whispered. "Not accusation, just truth." Jesse looked at his shaking hand. "I've killed men for far less," he said quietly. "Not anymore," Claire said, soft but unbreakable. "No, not anymore." He meant it, not while River lived, not while this mattered more than his anger. They tied Roy, drug him down the ridge through brutal terrain. By the time they reached the cabin again, Jesse's arm was soaked scarlet. Claire got River inside first. She moved like she could split her body into three and do all things simultaneously. Jesse followed after securing the unconscious outlaw to a post in her shed. Claire tore fabric, cleaned the cut, bound his arm tight. River slept safe. The fire crackled warm. Jesse breathed deeper again. And Claire whispered words Jesse didn't know how to swallow. "We're in something much bigger than the three of us now." Jesse looked at the small sleeping baby. "No," he said low. "This starts and ends with them." He leaned closer to River. "We find who tried to erase you, and we burn their whole house down."
Roy woke before sunset. Claire was inside feeding River. Jesse was seated in the shed already, hat low, chair tipped back on two legs. Rope tied Roy's wrists to a support beam. Roy blinked, first confused, then remembering. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," Roy rasped. Jesse didn't move. "Talk." Roy smirked. "I don't talk for free." "You already lost leverage," Jesse said. "You failed the job." Roy's eyes went dark. "That baby ain't a job, Crane. That baby's a message that was supposed to disappear." Jesse leaned forward, slow. "Message to who?" Roy's jaw shifted. There was just enough fear in his eyes now to reveal truth existed in that direction. They ain't gonna care I got caught. They'll send others. Better shots. Men with no hesitation left in them. Jesse waited. Roy swallowed hard. Blackburn. Blackburn Crossing. That's where it starts. Jesse felt a slow chill crawl his spine. You worked for Blackburn once, didn't you? Jesse said. Roy stared at him like Jesse had spoken a sin. It's not about working for Blackburn. It's about surviving Blackburn. Jesse saw real terror behind his bravado. You still haven't told me why the baby, Jesse said more quietly. What did River ever do? Roy flinched slightly at the name River. So you named it. Jesse didn't correct him. Roy whispered, Blackburn ain't gonna let a bloodline court inherit what's coming. Someone high up in the chain got this child born with a claim. Too high a claim, too risky a threat. Someone paid to erase the whole branch before court hearings came. The breath left Jesse all at once. This baby is born into money, Jesse realized. Legacy money. Empire money. Old railroad share money. The kind of births war is between men who dress in suits, not holsters. You think the West is dying slow? No. The West is being bought. Claire's voice came from the doorway. And this child stands in the way? Roy turned toward her. Claire stepped inside fully now. River was asleep again in her arms. The tiny breathing bundle that had no idea they were already a target of men who kill without remorse. So that's it? Claire whispered. Kill the most defenseless to win land and power? Roy laughed. We've been doing that since the beginning, sweetheart. Look around. Nothing's changed. Jesse stood slow. You're going to write the names, he said quietly. You're going to write who hired you, who knew you were here. Roy's eyes hardened. You think they'd let names live on paper? Jesse stepped close enough that Roy could feel breath. If you don't give me names, they'll never find your body. Claire didn't stop him this time. Roy's confidence cracked. Men like Roy always played tough until something stronger than fear arrived. Jesse Crane was stronger than fear. Roy broke first. He whispered 3 names. 3. Each name hit like a bullet in Jesse's blood. When Roy finished, Jesse stepped back, like something detonated inside him. Claire saw it instantly. You know them, she said quietly. Jesse didn't answer. It wasn't that he knew them. It was that he used to ride with 2 of them. Before the war, before the world corrupted into this version of cruelty, he tried to outrun by isolating himself. He turned away. Claire watched silent, waiting. River shifted lightly in her arms. This isn't just a mystery. This is history coming back. Jesse exhaled hard. This is my fault, too. I knew those men once. I should have ended them before they learned how to own whole counties. Claire shook her head. It's not on you. Jesse looked back at River like he was seeing future, not present. No more running. We ride at first light, to Blackburn Crossing. Claire nodded. I'll go with you. Jesse froze. Claire! You think I stayed out here because living was simple? Claire stepped toward him. Everything in this place is war. We pick which war we fight. I choose this one. I choose River. River's tiny hand clutched in sleep at the sound of their voices. Something in Jesse softened and hardened at the same time, a vow forming like steel forged inside bone. He looked at Roy one last time. You try to run? I kill you myself. Roy didn't say anything this time. He wasn't testing boundaries anymore. Jesse had become lethal purpose again, and Roy knew it. Jesse walked out first. Claire followed.
The door shut. Inside that silent cabin, they weren't strangers anymore. Not lost, not accidental, not coincidence, but built into intersection. Fate had tied them the moment Jesse pulled that saddlebag from river water. Jesse sat on the porch steps, staring at dying orange sky as night rose again. Claire sat beside him with River sleeping in her arms. "What now?" she asked. "We changed the ending. No more secrets, no more drowning children in quiet creeks." Jesse nodded. "Blackburn Crossing won't expect us. That's our leverage. They think we're afraid. They think we'll hide. They think River disappears before the world learns what they tried to do." Claire looked at River again. "Then tomorrow, we tell the world." Jesse leaned toward the baby. "You survived the river. Now you survive the war." Outside, the wind shifted direction, like the world itself had realigned. Tomorrow morning they would saddle up. Tomorrow they would ride straight into Blackburn Crossing. And tomorrow would decide if River lived long enough to claim destiny instead of dying under somebody else's greed. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was retribution.